Let's take a couple minutes to talk about the storyboard. The storyboard is where we'll be dealing with a lot of the visual aspects of our application. It's where we're going to be dropping things like labels and buttons and search bars and image views and things that make our application a lot more interactive for our users. And if you created your project the way that I did, you should see a file over in your navigator called main.storyboard. And if you click it, you should see something very similar to this. And now if you've worked in previous versions of Xcode and have not seen Xcode 6 yet, the first time you get here can be a little jarring. The first time I got here, I thought, wow, that's a very ambiguously sized view controller, and I have no idea where to drop labels and things like that onto it. Well, it turns out that Xcode 6 offers a lot more flexibility to us as developers in terms of the size of your view controllers area. So one of the first things I like to do in my iPhone projects in Xcode 6 is actually readjust the size of my view controller to feel a little bit more like the screen of a current iPhone. And the way that you can do that is by selecting this button down at the bottom and then clicking on the bottom left square. There we go. That feels a lot more comfortable to me. It represents the size of a current iPhone a little bit more accurately, and now I know where to put things like labels and buttons so that they end up on the screen where I want them. The other part of this area that I want to focus on is the object library, and that's down here to the right. This is going to be where we're dragging and dropping things like labels and buttons and segmented controls and switches and activity indicators and all kinds of fun classes that come from UIKit that will let us display information to and pull information from our users. So we're going to go ahead and set up a couple parts of our application right now. If you click down in the search bar of the object library and you type label, you should get a result here. And now if you drag and drop onto your storyboard, onto the view controller, we have a label. And we can resize our label and use Xcode's guidelines to make sure we don't extend it too far. What we're going to want to do is create three copies of this label so that we end up with 4 labels. So you can do that in a couple of ways. You can either drag and drop each time. I like to hold Alt and then drag this label, which basically makes a copy of that label and keeps all of the size proportions. So go ahead and do that 3 times so that we have 4 labels on our screen. And one thing that you're going to want to do as well is ensure that all the labels have a lines property of 0. And what that's going to do is if we have a label whose text ends up to be more than can fit in the defined area, the label should respond accordingly and allow for multiple lines of text. It basically says, we don't know how many lines we're going to have, so go ahead and default to 0 and adjust accordingly when we give you the information from our code. Let's go ahead and drag a couple more things onto our storyboard. Let's go ahead and look for button and drag that down to the bottom. And we need a image view, which we can put up at the top. And that should do it for now. So now that we have all these items sitting on our storyboard, what do we do with them? Well, we'll cover that in the next section, and where we make some properties in our view controller class.